Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about colorism and its effects on the Black community. By the Black community, I mean both back home in Africa, in Nigeria, here in America, and every other place where Black people basically exist, which is everywhere. Before I get into it, please make sure that you give this video a thumbs up. Please make sure that you also subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified every single time that I publish a new video. I'm going to start by defining what colorism actually is. Colorism is discrimination of somebody based off of their skin color, based off of their skin tone. And oftentimes we see that people who are darker skinned are kind of like the butt of the joke, if that makes sense. So people always make very colorist remarks and jokes about people who are darker skinned. And don't get me wrong, I understand the fact that sometimes jokes are jokes, but with the way things are going and with the other effects that colorism has had or is having on our society, some of these things are much more than just regular jokes, and that's why I want to talk about them in this video. In very many ways, it has very terrible effects on people, on our psyche, on our self-esteem, and all those things. Colorism is also very largely perpetuated by anybody. Anybody can be a colorist. So a colorist is a person who discriminates or who makes fun of darker skinned people. Usually the conversation of colorism is geared towards people who are darker skinned because darker skinned people are kind of perceived to be less attractive, less beautiful, more ugly, more masculine if you're a dark skinned woman. So I'm going to go ahead and give you 3 examples of colorist behavior. One example is shaming people for having hyperpigmentation. If you're not familiar with what hyperpigmentation is, it is basically when you look at people's, let's say, their knees, their knuckles, their underarms, their butt cheeks, their elbows, they appear, those parts of the body in dark skinned people, or let's say melanated people, appear to be darker than the rest of the body. And that's because of the excess concentration of melanin in those specific areas. So that's why you see some people who have naturally darker elbows, darker underarms, darker butt cheeks, darker knees, darker knuckles. It's normal, and it's not just an effect of bleaching. I know that people usually have that mentality and they say that, oh, if your knuckles are darker than your hands or something, then it means you're bleaching. That's not always the case for everybody, because it is very it's very normal for dark skinned people to have hyperpigmentation. So oftentimes you see people shaming, especially women, for I just remembered something, I'm sorry. You see people shaming women mostly for having darker body parts. So shaming people for hyperpigmentation is an example of colorist behavior. I've seen so many remarks about people mocking women with, let's say, darker knees, or somebody even did it to me one time. I said, "Oh my God, why are your knuckles so dark?" And I'm like, you're not about to shame me for something that is as normal as the sky being blue. You get what I mean? Another common example of colorist behavior is thinking that lighter skin is more beautiful or better than darker skin. I think this one is even the commonest when it comes to the conversation of colorism, because a lot of people just tend to look at people who are lighter skinned, or let's say fairer skinned, or even white, to be better or to be more beautiful or to just be more attractive than darker skin. And to some extent, I can understand why. This is not me condoning the behavior, but I can understand why, because of how our history has been taught and how we see a lot of things in the media. I'm going to get into most of that in the later part of this video. But yeah, a lot of people still have this weird mentality that, okay, when somebody is light skinned, they look finer than the other person who is dark skinned. A lot of men are also very fond of referring to darker skinned women as more masculine, which is inherently very, very disturbing when you think about it, because you really think about the effects of colonialism and the effects of brainwashing from the media, to get to this our generation, and you see how people still think in such backward ways. Another very serious example of colorist behavior is intentional skin bleaching. Skin bleaching, unfortunately, is such a huge business in Nigeria, with so many people, so many fraudulent skincare companies saying that, oh, they want to sell you this very disgusting product that is made up of milk and honey and yogurt and all these disgusting ingredients, and they sell it to a lot of people and they say, oh, this is going to help you to make your skin clear. And by making your skin clear, they basically are telling you that they are going to help you to bleach. Skin bleaching is not only a crazy thing to do, it's also very unhealthy for your skin, for your internal organs, and we can get into a whole rabbit hole with that, but I'm not going to get into that right now. You see a lot of people even trying to bleach their children because they want their children to be lighter skinned. And again, it goes back to what I was talking about with brainwashing and colonialism, where people just think that being lighter skinned makes you more desirable than being darker skinned. You can also draw a straight line from skin bleaching to the fact that people who bleach their skin have or are dealing with some level of inferiority complex. Now, I'm going to get into the reasons why a lot of people are still very colorist and the reasons why a lot of people still exhibit colorist tendencies or colorist behavior. One of the biggest reasons for people being colorist is, I want to say, the effects of colonialism. So everybody knows what happened with colonial history, how white people colonized black people, and I really hate to talk about subjects like this because I understand how touchy they can be. But one of the, should I say, weapons that they used to subject black people into slavery was to tell us that we're not good looking, or we're not good enough, or that we're ugly and we look like monkeys, and a lot of very weird remarks that we would see in those days, especially when you look back at, let's say, minstrel shows, or when you look back at posters. But that was one of the reasons why I guess black people started looking at themselves as inferior to white people. And it's so crazy how something as, in quotes, minuscule as your skin color goes such a long way when we're talking about you appreciating who you are. So I think that colonialism really did a number on us, and we're still seeing the effects of what was done so many years ago in our society today. Another reason why people tend to be colorist is because of media desirability. So sometimes the media usually pushes this narrative, or usually just push lighter skinned people or fairer skinned people to our screens. And it's like they sell the idea of, okay, if you're fairer skinned, you're more beautiful. If you're darker skinned, you're not as beautiful. Even in Nigeria, a lot of people want to just look lighter than they are. Even when you go to, let's say, buy makeup. I remember one time I was buying makeup. My sister is a makeup artist, so she taught me how to do like my makeup and my basic makeup and all those things. So when I went to buy my foundation and my powder, this woman was like, "Oh, you have to buy a color that's lighter than your skin." And I'm like, "Why? Why?" Why do I have to do that? It's all these tiny, tiny things that you see that are just indicators of how bad it is, or how bad people think about dark skin, or just about having lighter skin, if that makes sense. I think that the media has played a very huge role in contributing to colorist behaviors, or colorist tendencies, or colorist mentalities, because oftentimes they will portray somebody that is supposed to be desirable as light skinned, looser hair texture, all those things. The entire 9 yards, and many people look up to that and probably want to be that, because the things that you consume, you kind of become them. When you consume a certain type of content all the time, it won't take too long for you to start thinking, or for you to start wanting to be like that thing. Another reason why colorism is a huge problem is because of self-esteem, low self-esteem, and self-hatred. This particular one is a very, very, I want to say it's a very deep rabbit hole, because you see this coming from men towards women when men try to mock women for being darker skinned, or you hear even celebrities, and I'm saying celebrities, but a lot of your average male counterparts don't think too far off from them. Do you understand? I remember one time on Twitter, I had to correct somebody for saying that. I was like, that having darker bottoms, elbows, knees, knuckles, armpits, all those things is very normal for people who are dark skinned, or for melanated people. And a lot of people were like, "Oh my god, so why do you have to show us blah 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 blah?" They were really taking offense to it, and it's like, you don't even realize how deep the mentality has eaten into your brain. For you to come up here and shame people for something that is very normal, it's just a very tiny indicator of the huge fact that you probably just don't like yourself. You don't like your skin color. I can also draw a straight line from low self-esteem and self-hatred to skin bleaching, or intentional skin bleaching, because many people will just think that, oh, my skin is not good enough, therefore I want to bleach. Bleaching let me even say this, bleaching is very, very different from you trying to even out your skin tone. Let's say maybe you have hyperpigmentation and you're trying to sort it out, or you're trying to make sure that your armpits are not as dark as they would usually appear. Things like that I can understand. And the reason I can understand it is because sometimes what contributes to hyperpigmentation is dead skin, right? And people try to, like, just exfoliate those areas so that they are more healthy. And the effects of making those areas healthier is that they appear to be lighter than they already are. If somebody is trying to make their armpits or their knees or their knuckles kind of align with their regular skin tone, I don't consider that to be bleaching. Okay. Bleaching is much more dangerous, I would say. But this is a whole topic for the skincare girlies, and I don't think I really have the range or the right words to I don't think I really have the right words to describe what I'm trying to talk about. So I'm not going to get into that too much. I want to talk about how we can actually get out of colorist tendencies. So I think that the first thing people need to do is to decolonize their minds. A lot of people are still very, very colonized, and we could split that particular point into several different topics. But on the topic of skin bleaching, I would say that a lot of people need to decolonize their minds. I think that the world has gotten to a point where we now have an appreciation for the variety of skin tones, skin colors, and all those things. And I also think that it is very telling of your intellectual capacity or of your level of knowledge for you to see dark skinned people and make fun of them and say, "Oh my god, you're so black, you're so ugly." Like, what in 2024, what is actually wrong with somebody having a lot of melanin? So all these things I would say would go back to colonization, because it has really done a huge number on us, and people need to realize that need to stop looking at darker skinned women especially as more masculine. That's really, really weird, because if you think that every woman should be, let's say, light skinned, or you think that maybe light skin is equal to more femininity, then you're also kind of, if you flip the argument around, you're also kind of saying that light skinned men are more feminine than dark skinned men. Do you see how that argument makes no sense? It's really weird. I think a lot of people do need to decolonize their minds so that we can get out of the mentality that, okay, black is bad and white or lighter skinned is good. Another thing that I think we need to do is to call out these colorist behaviors or tendencies. That's something I do personally. Even if it's yourself, you need to call yourself out and have it in your subconscious that, hey, I shouldn't be thinking about looking at dark skinned people as maybe ugly or more negative. I understand that there's something called conventional beauty, and not everybody is conventionally beautiful, if that makes sense. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just being colorist and hating on black skin, especially on dark skinned women. If you see your friends making colorist remarks, it's up to you to, when I say call them out, I don't mean like be rude to them and just snap. I mean, actually have a conversation with them and say, hey, this is your thought process. There is a very serious problem with it, because you can't go into the world thinking this way. I guess what I'm trying to say is just hold your own accountable, hold your friends accountable. And when you see things like that, even if it's on social media or something, say something about it, so that sometimes people just don't know. People don't know that what they are thinking is bad sometimes until you call it out. Especially in this particular situation. So if you see something, you should say something. Another way that I think we can get past colorist tendencies is to consume content from people who talk about these things. There are so many creators on YouTube who talk about colorism and colorism against dark skinned women. If you listen to other people who make very solid arguments, right, it would just help you to turn around your mind. And I'm very passionate about this particular topic, because I think that this is something that a lot of women struggle with, especially with regards to things like hyperpigmentation and having people shame you for something that is so normal and something that I guess people don't have enough knowledge about. When you just step out of your comfort zone to hear what the other side is saying, you enlighten yourself more, and that also helps you to enlighten your circle. It's normal for you to have different skin colors and codes on your body, especially as a black person, because it is just what it is. Our melanin is, I want to say that that's like the let's say, the effects of having a lot of melanin. So it's normal. If your knuckles are slightly darker than your hands, it's normal. If your knees are slightly darker than your legs, it's normal. If your armpits, if your elbows are slightly darker than the surrounding parts of your body, it is very normal. And this is not to take away from people who actually want to correct those quote mistakes on their bodies. I mean, it's something that I actively try to do. One thing I try to do for myself, especially with my underarms, is waxing, because I realized that shaving just causes me a lot of bumps and it makes that area really irritated. So I stopped shaving and I started waxing, and it has really been helping me. So if it's something that you want to go ahead to do, maybe for your own good, it's okay. But in general, don't lose yourself because you're trying to correct something that is largely, let's say, a lot of people's in quotes problem, if that makes sense. So that's it for this video. Tell me what you think in the comment section. I am really looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say, and also you should share this video with people. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to also subscribe if you're not subscribed. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.